Good evening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to DVC's Welcome Day for Parents and Families. My name is Rosa Armendáriz, and I am the Dean of Student Equity and Engagement here at the Dvc Pleasant Hill campus, and I'd like my colleague, Kenyetta Tribble, to also introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenyetta Tribble, and I am the Senior Dean at the Dvc San Ramon Campus. Nice to have you all tonight.
Thank you, Kenyetta. And I am experiencing a bit of a Wi-Fi connection, so my image might look like it's lagging. I might turn off my video if it becomes distracting, but you will be able to hear my voice, and you can follow the PowerPoint presentation as well. So we are very excited that you and your students have chosen DVC as the next step in your educational journey. And we're here tonight to offer you some important information and resources so that your student can start this semester successfully and hopefully complete the semester successfully, especially in this online and hybrid environment that we're all in at this time. We also want to thank you for joining us on a Tuesday evening. We recognize that the pandemic has affected all of us in different ways, and we're working maybe in different modalities. So we're very pleased that you chose to join us this evening for an online webinar. Next slide, please. So this evening we'll cover a variety of topics, and I want to review the agenda a bit with you so you know what to expect. We're going to go over some information about DVC, a snapshot of what we call our interest areas or majors, the different majors that students can choose. We'll provide you some tips as parents and families of a new college student. We'll talk a bit about what the online and hybrid environment will look like and expectations for students in college. We will cover student confidentiality, or what we call FERPA, some important transitions for parents as you enter the college environment. And we will have two special guests from financial aid and the transfer center to give you key information for your student to be successful. Next slide, please. This is a webinar session, so you will be able to see all of us, the presenters. And if you have questions for us, you can use the Q&A button on your webinar and type in the questions, as some of you already have, and someone will respond to your question live. At the end of each segment, we'll allow a few minutes for questions for that presenter as well. And we can follow up with you if there are some individual questions or things that are needed. For instance, with registration, as I see a question already about the vaccination upload. So please put those questions in the chat. Thank you. And the next slide. And I will hand it over to Kenyetta to kick us off with information about DVC.
Okay, sorry, I wanted to make sure I could get my mic unmuted. Thank you, Rosa. And as Rosa said, we're really happy that you all are here with us this evening to get information for your son or daughter who will be starting at DVC for the first time in the spring, or maybe they started in the fall and you wish you had attended this session. So we want to welcome you to this session. And we do realize that there's lots of questions, and so we will have an opportunity for Q&A, some Q&A, and as she mentioned, there's opportunity throughout the chat as well. So just an overview. I mean, most of you obviously heard of DVC because you have someone who's enrolled at DVC, but I'm representing the San Ramon campus, but I also work very closely with Pleasant Hill. So I always like to say we're one college and two campuses. So we have been functioning a lot more as a one college. Lately, the pandemic has really helped us with that. A lot of our services we've been able to offer online, and we've been able to service students from both campuses. And sometimes we don't even consider students from one campus or another. But if students are going in person, it's really important for them to know if they're signing up for an in-person class, which campus that they'll be at. So I want to make sure that you know we are one college, two campuses. One secret is that all the section numbers, which is the 4-digit number after a class, if they start with a 9, they are a San Ramon class. Anything from 9,000 to 9,500 means that it is at the San Ramon campus. And sometimes that's helpful because sometimes a student may have a question for a dean and it's a math class. It matters if it's at San Ramon or if it's at Pleasant Hill, which dean they will go to. So just a little nugget for you all for participating. DVC has lots of different certificates, probably too many, but we have lots of different certificates, degrees for transfer, which are really valuable for students that are transferring to the CSU system and can get priorities. And I'm sure that Mark, our transfer center coordinator, will talk about that as well. We have over 70 local degrees as well, whether it's focusing on transfer or a career technical field as well. So speaking of career technical field, we actually call it career education now because that changed a few years ago, but we have career education and we have over 35 certificates and degrees for career education. And those are really important for students who want the hands-on, I know what I want to do. I would like to make some good money and I need a certificate or an associate's degree to do that, or I may want to earn that before I decide to transfer. As you know, DVC is known for transfer. We also like to be known for our CE programs as well. So we have lots of great partnerships with BARD, with East Bay Mud, and lots of other organizations locally to help with things that we need in the state of California. But we are known for transfer. We're one of the high transfer rate institutions for the Bay Area. And I don't want to steal, again, any of Mark's thunder. So I'll let him, if he plans to, talk a little bit about that. Or if you have questions, you can definitely ask about that. It's really important for you to know that our faculty are really well trained. Our faculty choose to teach. That's why they're here at the community college. So they chose to teach versus doing a lot of research. We have faculty with PhDs, but they really enjoy teaching. And because we value our faculty and our classified, we do a lot of professional development. So our faculty have been going through a lot of online training for teaching online as we had to pivot to online, as well as constantly training about in-class instruction as well. At DVC, we have one of our great colleagues, John, on, who's answering questions in the background. He works with student life and lots of student clubs. We have over 60. If there's not one that we have here and your son or daughter would like to start one, we have the ability to do that too. And we have a ton of support services for students as well. We'll talk a little bit more about those in detail a little later. So speaking of support, as Rosa mentioned earlier, it's really about us doing whatever we can and make sure our students are successful. So we have what we call an Ask Center, which is the Academic Support Center. And it really started with some of our faculty and folks in the athletic department, where they came up with something that's called Just Ask. We want students just to ask us anything, and we want them to ask so we can support them in their academics. And so we've had this center since 2019, I believe. And because it's been such a good resource for our students, we've expanded it as we move towards helping students with their majors and what we call interest areas. So when students apply to the college, they can say, I know I want to work with my hands, but I don't know exactly what I want to do. Well, we put them in an interest area based on their interest. And if they know exactly what they want to do, there's an interest area for that. If they're not really sure, there's also an interest area for them. And they're not tied to anything. They can always change what they want to do. But in these interest area success centers, we have 8 total. We have 1 on the San Ramon campus and multiple at the Pleasant Hill campus. They're by major at the Pleasant Hill campus. And so it's just a place for students to get the support they need. We have counselors that are there to support students. We provide tutoring in those areas. We have faculty who do their office hours there. We really want students to feel comfortable. And it's really a model that the state has shown that's really successful. So definitely let your son or daughter know about the student centers. As far as we have learning communities as well. So if a student, learning communities are where there's a cohort of students that take at least 2 classes together. And so usually the learning community could be about their major. It could be based on their cultural background, lots of different things that they can do for learning communities. And I'm going to speed up because I'm the time. So we also just want to mention our in-person and online services. And I know it's been a challenge with some of the not having the in-person services as much. Today was our first day back on campus, and we've been helping students on both campuses. But there's also this chat feature online. If you see on this image, there's the little icon for the chat. Any website that has that on, you can chat with someone during the hours that are listed on there. We also have a chat bot. So depending on which website you're on, there's always a question you can put in there. And so the admissions has this, counseling. I'm not sure about Career Center, but any website you go to on our webpage will let you know if there's someone that can chat with you while we're open live. So we do have those services. For students that have disabilities, we have an office that's dedicated to supporting them in their classes as well. Their website is a great resource for you to get more information. And of course, we have a financial aid presentation later today, so you'll learn more about that. And speaking of interest areas, here they are. So these are the areas of interest students could have. And if they don't know, the Ask Center is actually for any undecided student. So we have interest areas in these 5 areas. We have the Ask Center, and then we have the Ask Center at the San Ramon campus. But again, this is an area of interest that a student may have. And if they change their mind, they can go to a different area of interest. They're not tied to anything. A lot of us, I know me personally, I started off in college thinking I was going into biomedical engineering and kind of wish I did at some points. But anyway, I changed my major multiple times as several other people have. And so we want that flexibility, but we also want to offer support. So if I wanted to do the math and engineering and had a success center that could support me, maybe I would be in that field right now. I don't know. So anyway, that's what I want to say about the areas of interest areas, I should say. Rosa.
Thank you, Kenyetta. And as you and your student transition into college, particularly during this very unique time, we remind you that this is a time of change, especially for your student, right? And there might be questions that come up. There might be times when they're doubting or feeling ambivalent about different things. Remember that you serve as a coach for your student. Empower them to make decisions, support them to explore new classes and topics, and especially help them to get involved on campus or in things that they're really interested in. Next slide, please. A few tips and reminders, and I think most of us as parents try not to do this, but we obviously care a lot about their success. Try not to pick your students' classes or edit their papers or do their homework, right? But rather remind them to meet with a counselor, to pick their classes or to explore their major and interests. Utilize the tutoring services that Kenyetta highlighted. Encourage your student to talk with their professors, especially during office hours. There's lots of ways for them to connect with their professors. Have conversations with your student, ask them about their courses, what they're learning, etc., rather than just focusing on their grades. And most especially, during this time when many of us are spending a lot of time at home, make sure to allow dedicated time and space for their studies. Do they have their own space within the house, their room, their desk, whatever they need, their computer? And then encourage them to get involved, as I said before, in student life, in sports, in things that actually make them more excited about college. Next slide, please. All of this is important, right? But we also know that during this transition, young people are learning to manage their time, and they've gained a lot of freedom. There's a big shift, especially if you're coming straight from high school to college. There won't be a bell schedule reminding them of the need to go from one class to the other. And the schedules are going to be very varied. They're going to have class on Monday and Wednesday, not Monday through Friday at the exact same time. So you know your student best. Think about how to support them, how to encourage them to take responsibility and to learn from their mistakes, because some mistakes might happen. And all of this really relates to time management, and we'll move to the next slide to highlight for you what a typical schedule might look like in college and why it's so important for your student to really plan things out. If you have a student who is enrolled in college for a full-time schedule, about 12 units, this is what the possible schedule might look like. Taking an English class, a social science or history class, math, if you think about being a full-time student as a job, for each unit that your student is in college, in a college class, they will be doing homework or studying for about 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours outside of the class. Each unit of the course represents 1 hour in class. So a 5-unit course means that they are in class physically or online for 5 hours a week. And outside of class, they're studying for 2 or so hours, doing homework, papers, etc. So if you're taking a full load of 12, 14 units, you are committing 40 hours at least to your school schedule. And often students also have a part-time job outside of college. And so you want to plan for that. How many hours can they actually work? 10 hours, up to 20 hours might be the recommendation. But help them to map out what that schedule looks like. Does it allow for eating, for hanging out with their friends, for traveling to and from school or their job? And we often take this for granted. So we want to highlight this for families so you're aware of how much time the college experience is going to take for the student. Next slide, please. Highlighting a few of the online supports for your student on campus. I mentioned the importance of having dedicated space and technology for school. We do have a technology loan program available for students who might need a laptop, calculator, headphones, webcams, and Wi-Fi hotspots. And students can sign up on our website. There is a request form to take out a loaner of any of these. There's no fee for the student, and you can check it out for the semester. There's also a lot of supports for online instruction, including some tutorials on Canvas, which is our online management system for classes. And we encourage all of the students to do as much as they can on that so that they become expert in using all of our college tools. Next slide, please. 2 other supports that we want to highlight for you today as well are our basic needs resources. And we have a full web page that we could put in the Q&A for you that includes a food pantry with a variety of options for students if they need some food, housing, and financial support that includes our CARES grants for students. And that is up to $1,000 of support for students who might be experiencing financial need during this time. And they can use that funding for technology, for just daily expenses, or a variety of school-related needs. And we encourage students to check that out if they need it. And we also have a new free telehealth service program called Timely MD, where students can access medical or mental health supports online with a variety of practitioners. Our Associated Student Government created this partnership, and we're really proud to offer it. Many of our students are accessing it during this time when they feel stressed or need additional support while they're in school. We will put those 2 in the chat for you so you can access the websites as well to see the resources. And the next slide. And I'll pass it back.
Thank you, Rosa. So I get to talk about something that people may not want to hear. So now that your students are in college, whether they're concurrently enrolled or if they're out of high school, they are considered to be our students, and we only communicate with the student. So if we can go to the next slide, there's a federal law that's called FERPA. And FERPA stands for the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, and it's been in the law since 1974. And basically, that's a protection of students' records. And so if a parent wants to find out how their kid is doing in school, we can't do that anymore. And that's some of the things that Rosa was talking about this being a transitional time for parents and students. We want you to be the coach, but we don't want you to do the work for them. You definitely can support them, but we want them to learn how to advocate for themselves as well. So you can say, did you talk to your instructor about this? You see their grade, or if they talk to you about something, but don't email the instructor for them, because the instructor may not respond, most likely will not respond. to you, and we don't want that to jeopardize any relationships as well with the student and the instructor. So this is a law that we keep in place. I know sometimes it's challenging for parents if they have a student that is DSS. And so you can submit paperwork for your son or daughter, and all of this information is on the DSS website. But anything about their record, like did they go to class today, all of those kind of questions, we will not be able to provide for you. There is a confidentiality waiver form that students can choose to sign for a reason, like maybe they're in the hospital or something happened and they need a parent to step in. So you can go on the Admissions and Records website and get that form. It could be for a one-time only. I know often like students who were taking classes while they're in high school, the parents created their account. The parent is like, I have your login and all of that information. We really want you to like let go and let the student be the student at this point and really advocate for themselves and just, again, be that coach and that guide. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear about FERPA, and that is something that if you try to get information, unless there's something on file that allows us to get that information, we cannot do so. Okay, so I definitely saw that there were lots of questions in the chat, at least I think 7 questions in the chat, and I think Mercy and John and others have done a great job responding to the questions that are here. And so are there any other questions that you would like to put in the chat related to anything that Rosa and I covered? Okay, there's none pressing immediately. Then we can move on to our next wonderful presenter, Jesus, if your presentation is ready.
Thank you, Kenyetta. Thank you, Rosa. So I'll share my screen. So hi, everyone. My name is Jesus. I work at the DVC Financial Aid Office, and I'll be discussing financial aid essentially. So the learning outcome for my part of the presentation today is to make sure parents, students as well, if there's any students attending, slash families, to learn about financial aid overall, and also specifically the FT3 program. So the first part that I'm going to cover is how to apply for financial aid. So basically, most students are going to fall into 2 buckets regarding financial aid. So if the student is a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen, so for example, a U.S. national or permanent resident, those students are going to fill out what's called the FAFSA. And the URL is fafsa.gov. And if there are any undocumented families today, and the student is undocumented, attended, and they graduated from a California high school, and or they are a DACA recipient, they will fill out the California Dream Act application. And the URL for that is caldreamact.org. And this is the landing page for the FAFSA. So it says FAFSA a few different places, so that way you're at the right place. And remember, it's FAFSA.gov. It's not .com, .net, or anything like that. It's .gov, since it is a government website. And then the California Dream Act application, this is the landing page for that. And the URL for that is dream.csac.ca.gov or caldreamact.org, or we could also use Google. And so remember, for undocumented students to submit your California Dream Act application, because submitting the FAFSA actually create more problems on the back end when trying to receive financial aid. And so when to apply for financial aid. So I'm assuming that all the parents attending today is that their students are going to be attending spring 22, so this upcoming semester. So you can apply for financial aid right now. It's going to require 2019 tax information, so make sure that you have that on hand when filling out the FAFSA. And also, if you're going to continue to attend for next academic year, so the 22 to 23 academic year, more specifically, those are the fall 22, spring 23, and summer 23 semesters. Make sure you submit your FAFSA for that academic year as well. That's became available starting October 1st of last year, and you have until June 30th of 2023, so plenty of time, but it's important to meet the March 2nd deadline for some state financial aid. So it's a very important deadline to meet going forward, and that's going to require 2020 tax information. So if you're already going to be submitting a 21 and 22 FAFSA, for example, you can also do the 22 to 23 FAFSA as well, just to get it over with. And for the types of financial aid that are available, at DVC, which are relatively standard for most colleges. There are grants, work study loans, and scholarships. So grants, that's aid that may not need to be repaid back ever. It's only paid back if the student drops out of all their courses in the middle of the semester. So a few examples are the Pell Grant, which is a federal grant, and the maximum for that amount for that grant for this academic year is about $6,500. There's also the California Promise Grant, which waives tuition fees for students. And there's also the Cal Grant, which does require a student to meet the March 2nd deadline. So that's why I mentioned a bit earlier that this is why the March 2nd deadline is important, because of grants like the Cal Grant. There's also a work study option available on campus. So basically, as soon as if they interview for a job for an office on campus, and if they're hired, then they would be working for the said office, and they would be getting paid hourly, but instead of getting paid through a department's budget, they're actually going to be paid through through work study, which is a form of financial aid. There's also loans available, which are obviously borrowed funds that are paid back with interest. Hopefully, no students here would have to take out loans during community college because it's a lower cost, and combined with other forms of financial aid. But if it is, if the student is interested and does want to take it, it's definitely an option. And then there are also scholarships, which I'll go over in a bit. And there's also FT3. So FT3 stands for first time full-time free tuition. So basically, it's free tuition for students. There's some criteria that a student needs to meet. So first is that they need to be a first-time college student. They enroll in a minimum of 12 units for the first term. So if spring 22, this upcoming semester, is the first term for the student, they have to be enrolled in at least 12 units. So 12 units is considered full-time. A student can enroll in more, but 12 units is the minimum. A student does have to submit a FT3 pledge/application, and they do have to apply for financial aid. So again, that's either the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application. And a student does have to be a California resident or otherwise exempt from paying non-resident tuition fees. So for example, having AB 540 residency status. So basically being a California resident or having an AB 540 residency status is required. And then at the end of the semester, if the student completes at least 12 units for the semester with a 2.0 GPA or higher, they're going to get a refund of the tuition for the spring 22 semester. And it covers the first 2 years of enrollment. So if the student is starting off in spring, it would cover spring, as well as the next academic year, so 22 to 23. But it is important to make sure that the student does apply for financial aid every year, and that they do enroll to be a full-time student, complete at least 12 units, and get at least a 2.0 GPA per semester. As for DVC scholarships, there are about 75 DVC scholarships and about 150 opportunities. So basically that averages out to 2 students per DVC scholarship. So everyone can apply. It doesn't really matter about legal status, whether it's an international student or a regular student that's lived here their entire life. Anyone can apply, and the amounts range from $500 to $5,000. And to apply, students just head over to the scholarship website of the DVC, and they log in using their Insight Portal username and password. And the application is available right now, and it closes mid-February of every year. And also on the DVC scholarship website lists all the criteria that students need to meet prior to submitting an application. There are also external scholarships that we have on our DVC scholarship website, but those have their own criteria, requirements, deadlines, all that kind of stuff. And each scholarship is applied for separately, so something to keep in mind of. But there are some listed on there, but that's just because they have reached out and for us to promote their scholarship on our website. But not every single external scholarship that's available, within the county or is going to be listed on here. Just a few organizations that have reached out to the DVC scholarship website to help promote their scholarship. And so financial aid tips, basically is that first one is that everyone should apply. Don't assume that you don't qualify. And the application for applying for financial aid is completely free, so you literally have nothing to lose. And the FAFSA is also pretty easy as well, using the data retrieval tool from the IRS. So instead of having to input manually the AGI or other information from the tax return that you may have, it just gets pulled from the IRS directly. So that makes your life a whole lot easier. And the average time that it takes to complete a FAFSA is about 30 minutes, but I've seen students submit it and complete it within like 10, 15 minutes. So So basically, it's a good, return on your investment for 30 minutes is to potentially get thousands of dollars to help cover, educational costs for college. And another thing to keep in mind is that parent information is going to be required on the FAFSA or DREAM Act application for the student. So regardless of how much support is provided by the parents, a student is going to be considered a dependent for financial aid purposes until a student is 24, married, has kids, is enrolled in a master's or doctorate program, is a veteran, or is an orphan in legal guardianship, emancipated minor, foster, or homeless youth. So until the student hits one of these criteria, basically they're going to be considered dependent. So they're going to need parent information. So parents that are on this session, make sure that your son or daughter / student is putting your information on the FAFSA or DREAM Act application, because otherwise it's going to show up as rejected if they try to submit it. So that is going to be required information until they hit one of these criteria again. And to get the best financial aid award package available for every academic year is to submit the FAFSA or DREAM Act application, plus submit a GPA verification form, which most high schools already send out, as well as the DVC admissions and records office automatically sends out as well. And submit all this stuff by March 2nd. You're going to be receiving the best financial aid award package available. If you haven't applied yet for financial aid, don't worry about it too much. Just make sure you submit your FAFSA or your DREAM Act application for this upcoming spring semester, so you can still receive financial aid. But going forward, make sure you try to meet the March 2nd deadline for future academic years to make sure you're not missing out on potentially thousands of dollars to help cover educational costs. So for DVC or even transferring out to a four-year school, if that is the goal. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, in the Q&A chat box. If you don't have any questions or something comes up later, here's the contact information for the financial aid office. You can reach us out via email, or also you can call us as well. We're also now open again for in-person services, so you can also stop by the office, whatever you feel uncomfortable with. And so if you, I also will stay a few minutes after my presentation to monitor the Q&A for any questions in the Q&A chat box, and to answer those as best as I can. But if not, thank you for attending today's workshop. We appreciate it. And also, again, don't forget to reach out to us if you have any questions regarding financial aid.
Thank you, Jesus, for all of the detail. And I'm hoping my voice is sounding okay. It sounds like I'm having some issues with sound as well. And feel free to reach back out to financial aid on the email or phone number that Jesus put up on the slide. And next we have Mark Yamamoto, counselor from Transfer Center. And there, he's back wearing his Cal gear. I hadn't noticed that, Mark.
Thank you.
Go Bears.
Go Bears. Let's see. So welcome. My name is Mark Yamamoto. I'm a counselor at DVC. This semester, spring semester, I am serving as the interim transfer coordinator. So I'll be working in the transfer center, assisting students with their transfer planning. So let me share my screen. Here we go. So there's a bigger presentation, but the number one point that I want the parents to take home tonight is the importance of an education plan with a counselor. So depending on where your students want to transfer, there's specific requirements that universities have, as well as certain majors have. And so to get an accurate, or to take the right courses to qualify for transferring for specific universities and majors, it is imperative that the students work with the counselor to create an ed plan. And it's not just about what courses you need to transfer, but also sequencing these classes in an appropriate way so you don't overload yourself one semester with too many challenging classes, which might cause the grade point average to go down. So please have your students meet with the counselor to create an education plan. If students if they already know where they want to transfer and what they want to major in, they're able to meet with the counselor in the first semester and work with the counselor to create the education plan for the next 2 to 3 years to fulfill all the requirements for transfer. So I highly recommend, usually after 2 weeks into the semester, so when enrollment ends, we tend to get a little slow in the counseling department. So that might be a good time for your students to meet with the counselor. So they can make an appointment online from our website, or they can call as well. I could provide that information for you later. So let's kind of get to this presentation. So transferring from Dvc to a university. So who is a transfer student? Transfer students are students who graduated from high school or earned their GEDs and enrolled at a community college or university for at least one regular term, okay? And so it could be, we have people that go to a university, they don't like it, so they transfer back to Dvc and then end up transferring to a local university. So we have different situations. Colleges and universities require different minimum number of units to be considered a transfer student. Most of our students transfer to UCs, University of California, and the California State University system. Those two systems require a minimum of 60 transferable units. So you have to have that minimum to transfer. Private and out-of-state schools, they have their own requirements, but they tend to have less units required to transfer. So if you look at the right, what's going to happen is at Diablo Valley College, your students will be able to complete the lower division requirements, or similar to what we award as an associate's degree. And then once they qualify and apply to transfer, they will complete the upper division work at the UC, CSU, or private or out-of-state university. And that's where they will earn their bachelor's degree. Okay, so why transfer from Dvc? Again, Jesus talked about the FT3, which will cover most of the students who graduated from California high school students for the first 2 years. So it's going to be a lot less expensive. Dvc classrooms are smaller than most university classrooms, especially for lower division courses. So it'll be a lot easier to feel more comfortable and have some interaction with the faculty. We also offer transfer preparation, certificate, and associate's degree. And our college does a really good job of preparing students for top universities when they transfer, and a lot of them are successful. So, and also there's this special consideration for California Community College transfer students to UCs and the CSUs specifically, and some private schools in the state. But the UCs and the CSUs and the community colleges in California have an agreement where they are required to take a certain number of transfer students from the California community colleges. So those spots are reserved for transfer students from the California community colleges. Also, this right here, DVC is the #1 transfer school to UC Berkeley and UC Davis, and it's one of the strongest transfer schools in the state of California. Okay, so here's, we don't want to get too deep into specific requirements, but a lot of students want to transfer to the University of California, UC Berkeley, UCLA. Those are some, San Diego are really popular UCs that a lot of our students transfer to. So the minimum requirements, you need 60 UC transferable units. So that's another reason why I get an ed plan with a counselor, because we know what's UC transferable. So your student does not end up taking classes that are not transferable and waste time taking classes they don't need. Minimum GPA is 2.4 to apply, but to be accepted to a lot of the UCs, it's competitive, so you do need a higher GPA than that. We also, there's a general ed pattern that most majors require, but that's another reason why your students should meet with the counselor for an ed plan, because certain majors that are science majors that require a lot of math, a lot of science lab courses, they don't require the same number of general ed classes as liberal arts majors. So that's another reason why it's important to meet with the counselor. Cal State universities, those are very popular with our students as well. Locally, a lot of our students go to San Francisco State, Cal State East Bay, San Jose State, Sonoma, and Sac State. A lot of our students also like to go to Southern California, so they apply to schools like Northridge, Fullerton, Dominguez Hills, and Long Beach and San Diego. So their CSUs also need 60 CSU transferable units. 2.0 is the minimum. Depending on the campus and the major, it might require much significantly higher GPA. In addition to the 60 transferable units, students must complete what's called the Golden Four to qualify for transfer to a CSU. That's 2 English classes, 1 math class, and an oral communication course. And so let's talk about a little bit more independent and private schools. So independent and private schools have their own requirements. And so when I work with a student that wants to go to a private school, what we end up doing in our counseling session is looking at their website, identifying a transfer advisor representative from that campus, and we start a communication where we ask the transfer rep from that university what courses our students need to complete at DVC to qualify to transfer to that specific independent or private or out-of-state school. So especially if your students are wanting to go out-of-state or to a private school, it is important to meet with a counselor. Let's see, preparing for transfer at a DVC. So again, most of the students are going to transfer to UCs or CSUs that require 60 units for both systems. So to transfer as a junior, DVC students need to complete these courses, major preparation courses. So those are courses that prepare you for your major. So for example, nursing students are required to take some general ed classes specifically for nursing, but they need to take anatomy, physiology, microbiology, and chemistry. So those are considered major prep courses. Business, students that are transferring in business, they need to take statistics, intro to business, couple of accounting classes, and economics classes. Those are major prep courses. And a little secret, when students are applying for transferring, major preparation courses are looked at much more closely than general ed classes, because these indicate how students will probably perform in their major, depending on how they perform in their preparation courses. So those are very important courses. So major preparation courses. The second group is called general education courses. We have a couple of different general ed patterns. IGETC is used for CSUs and UCs. CSU GE general ed breadth is used specifically for CSUs. So we have those sheets and we can recommend classes for your students to take. Some majors will not require a lot of major preparation courses. And so students will complete the major preparation courses and general education courses, but still not reach that 60 units of transferable credit. That's when they will take elective courses and they can take any transferable course as electives, okay? And apply to transfer 6 to 11 months. We'll talk about that a little more. So a lot of our students are able to transfer in 2 years, especially if they're able to start at college and college level math and English. But we do not discourage students from using an additional year at a community college, especially if they are taking a very challenging major such as engineering, biology, chemistry, physics, computer science. Those require a lot of high-level math classes, a lot of science courses with labs. So it may be a better strategy to take an extra year, take maybe one less class per semester, so the students won't be overloaded with too much studying and they're able to get better grades, especially if they're wanting to attend a competitive campus with a competitive major. Total units requirements, okay. Let's talk about IGETC and CSUs. So these are the two different general ed patterns that we will use to do the education plan with your students. Again, usually not recommend, these are not usually recommended for these high unit majors such as biology, engineering, computer science, and so forth. Another tool that we use as counselors, but your students can also look at, is called assist.org. Let me see if I could bring that up real quick. So if you can see this, let's say your student is attending DVC. We can find DVC here. Oops, passed it up. Let's say they want to go to UC Davis and they want to major in, let's say, biochemistry and molecular biology. And we view the agreement. And here we'll have what's called an articulate agreement by major between UC Davis here and Diablo Valley College. And if you look at this list, the left side will show what those classes are called at UC Davis. And then on the right-hand side, we will show, or it will show the equivalent courses at DVC. And then if you look here, there's one here that says no course articulated. If there's a class that we do not offer that is required, your students will not be required to take it. They will be able to take it after they transfer. So you see there's a lot of biology and chemistry, and there's also some math. So that's why they don't require as many general ed classes. So this tool is available to students. But also I still recommend students meet with the counselor because we're able to navigate it a little bit better and have a better understanding. Let me see here. So that's that. Let's go to electives. We talked about that a little bit. Let's talk about TAG. So it's called the Transfer Agreement Guarantee. They're not offered by every UC campus. These are the 6 campuses that are offering TAG at this time. 3 schools that do not offer the TAG are the 3 most popular campuses on the UC system: Berkeley, UCLA, and San Diego. But your students are able to apply for a transfer admissions guarantee, and there are certain requirements that they must meet a year prior to transferring. And if they have met those requirements, they can apply for a transfer agreement guarantee. And as long as in the second year they complete the rest of their required courses at a certain GPA, if you meet the criteria, you will be guaranteed admissions to one of these UC campuses. So now you're only allowed to apply for a tag with one of the 6 schools. So a lot of times what our students will do, especially if they want to go to a very competitive campus like Berkeley or UCLA, they will apply for a tag agreement with either UC Davis or Santa Barbara or one of the other schools, so that they'll have that guaranteed admission in their back pocket. They'll still apply to UC Berkeley and UCLA. And if they do not get accepted, they know they have that guarantee at a UC campus. So we can help your students prepare for the tag agreement. The application happens the September before the year, September the year before students transfer for the fall of the following year. So it's almost 11 months. So it is important to plan properly, and that's where our counselors can assist with that. Let's see, there's another thing called Associate Degree for Transfer. This is an agreement between the California Community College System and the California State University System. And what this shows is if you get an associate degree from transfer, it means that the student has met the requirement for that major at each of the CSU campuses. That doesn't mean that they're guaranteed admission to any other CSUs. It does guarantee you admissions to our local campus, which is Cal State East Bay. But even if they're planning to apply to schools outside of the area, completing the associate degree for transfer will basically guarantee that they have fulfilled the transfer requirement for that major at all the CSU campuses. Let's see, final year of DVC. So this is what we're kind of looking at timeline-wise. So August, students should start preparing for the UC application. So students, so let's say, for example, students that are going to start at a UC or at a UC in the fall of 2022, which is this August, they applied for the tag agreement in September 2021. I'm sorry, September 2021. And then for UC and CSU applications, the deadline was November 30th of 2021. So basically the November of the year before the student is transferring is when the applications will be due. We run application workshops at the transfer center. We also have drop-in appointments to help students navigate the application. So we do provide a lot of assistance through the UC and CSU application process. UC application also require what's called a personal insight questions, or what used to be called personal essays. We also help with those, review those, recommend any changes that they might want to, or what we feel might be needed. Oops. And then in the spring semester, students are going to be, that are transferring in August, will be updating their application in January. If they qualify for financial aid, they'll apply in between January and March. Mid-semester, so we're expecting March through May, students will be receiving their admissions decisions, whether they get accepted or not. And then I think SRI, I think that's the deadline to let the schools know you're going to attend there. I think that's what it is. and then they will submit all their final transcripts to the schools that they plan to attend in July 1st. Again, I can't emphasize enough how important the education plan is. It'll make the process easier. It'll bring a little bit of sense of relief knowing that you have an expert who has assisted in your planning to transfer. Some other services that we offer, many university representatives will visit our campus either in person or virtually to speak to our students directly. We also offer, again, application workshops and other type of workshops. And we provide online resources, as well as at the Transfer Center, which is right next to the counseling department in the student services. We offer drop-in counseling for quick transfer questions and answers. Let me see if I could show you our website real quick. Hopefully you can see, where is it? It's a transfer website here. Here it is. So here, one thing I want to show you is
Sorry, Mark. The screen didn't change.
Oh,
We
the
still see
screen.
the presentation.
Okay.
That happens to me too.
Okay, so this is our transfer website. Can you see it now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So if we scroll down to the bottom, there's a virtual drop-in with the counselor. So if students cannot make it to campus, there are some times that we are going, this hasn't been updated. We'll be updating it by the end of this week, but we have pretty much these same hours available for virtual drop-ins with counselors where students could come in and we'll meet them on Zoom and answer any transfer related questions that they may have. Another resource that's very valuable is what's here, which is called Canvas resource page. And that's, can you see that here? DVC transfer services. So we update and upload a bunch of transfer information that's valuable to students that they could access from their own Canvas. So those are some recommendations that I have. And let me see if there's any other. Yeah, so if you have any questions, you could reach us here and students could connect with us at the Transfer Center, either virtually or in person. So again, here, this is our website. We're also on various social media outlets. I believe we're on Instagram, LinkedIn, and so forth. So if you might want to have your students connect with us there. So if you have any questions, please feel free. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Mark, if it's possible, could you do the assist demo one more time? I think you were missing your screen for that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Let's see. Oops. Hold on, I got too many things open. Do you see assist now? Are you able to see the assist page?
Yes, we could see it now. Yes.
Beautiful. So this is accessible for students and parents if you want to use it. We use it often to do our ed planning. So students, let's say they're attending a Diablo Valley College. And let's say they want to apply to University of California, Los Angeles. Let's say they want to do major in atmospheric ocean science. View agreement. And if you look here, this is called the articulation agreement by major between University of California, LA, Diablo Valley College. And if you look on the left-hand side, these are the courses that are required at UCLA. On the right-hand side is what the equivalent courses are at DVC. And so as you can see, they want these courses at UCLA, this is what we offer that are equivalent at DVC. And if you look on this area, it says no courses articulated. If we do not offer courses that are required by the universities, then your students are not required to complete those requirements prior to transfer. They will complete those courses after transferring at the university of their choice. So this tool assist shows all the articulation agreements between the California community colleges, the UCs, and the CSUs. And I think that should complete my presentation. But please, number one, have your students make a counseling appointment for comprehensive education plan, and also have the students visit us either in person or remotely on the transfer center and get familiar with the services we provide so that they can be ready going into their second year, prepared for the process of applying for transfer. Thank you for your time.
And Mark, I'm sorry, we just some other questions we wanted to have you, if you could answer live.
Sure.
There was one about the tag and whether or not tags are for the fall only or for fall and spring.
They are for the fall only.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And I think Karen had a question about the resource fair. This is not specifically for transfer. So we are having the resource fair on the 15th. That's our lovely background poster. It's something for Welcome Day, where we were tabling with lots of information from various areas around the campus. And so that has been moved from the beginning of the semester to the 15th. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. That is the resource fair.
And then our office will be having a career fair, I believe sometime in March. We're planning that out. And we may, depending on, we may have a smaller transfer fair in the spring, but we will have a big one next fall where we get, I don't know, we get about 60 to 75 universities coming on our campus and giving our students information. So have your students keep in touch with us so they can know when that's coming up. And that'll be in the fall. Other questions, Kenyetta?
I think those are all the questions pertinent to transfer. Thank you so much for that detailed
Thank
presentation. There was a general question regarding getting an appointment sooner. I'm not really sure what that is specifically regarding, but if you go to our website soon, as Mark said, you'll have the updated information of when offices are open. If it's a counselor appointment, I looked on the counselor grid, and the first appointments that I saw available were the week of February, the second week of February, so before the 15th, when we have the resource fair. Okay, any other questions, or Rosa, did you?
I think the sound is better when I don't show my face. But if it sounds like most of the questions were addressed, if there are any other questions, put them in the Q&A. And as we mentioned previously, we know you may not have all of your questions today, and you might want to reach out later. And there are emails and phone numbers on the DVC Student Services webpage for all of the offices within our areas. And you can also reach out to us. By tomorrow, we'll send out an email to all the participants from our DVC First Year Experience email, FYE, and it will include the contact information if you need to reach back out to us with questions or you have any doubts after. And we also will send you a short evaluation to get your feedback on today's event and the information that we provided. So it looks like we answered the questions, which I'm very pleased. Other team members, anything else to chime in? Doesn't sound like it. So with that, then we do want to thank everyone once again for participating. We want to do a special thank you for Jesus and Mark for your presentations, and for Mercy and John, who have been in the background answering questions, and Zaida for all of the work that you've done on putting today's program together. And we do have one more question. Registration deadline for the spring semester is midnight on the 23rd, correct? So yes, you could register for classes up until that day. If there's additional seats in classes, some students might be able to add the class that week as well, but it is better to try to get in by the 23rd so it doesn't require any special permissions. And there are also some classes that start after that first week, what we call the late start classes, and students could register for those up until those dates as well. Kenyetta, anything to add to that?
No, I think you said it well. You mentioned that that's the time to register online without permission from the instructor. So some students can add a class late if the instructor gives them permission. So that's the last day for online registration without specific permission.
Right. And for the classes that start later after the 24th, you can register up to midnight the night before the first class meeting. Mm-hmm. Yes, and we hope students are still looking for classes and there is time to join in. Okay, so then to wrap up, you will receive an email from us tomorrow if you provided an email in your registration for the webinar. We'll add some of the resources that we included in today's presentation, and then the evaluation, as I noted as well. And we wish you all a very successful semester, and definitely reach out if there's any questions or other things that come up throughout the semester.